Hello and welcome to The Journal. I'm Steve Kendall. Back in November, Bowling Green State University began its Beyond the Dream series, focusing on different cultures across campus, featuring guest speakers, musicians, and multiple academic conferences. The series of events provides a variety of opportunities to share in the multicultural experience. Joining us are Jennifer McCary, BGSU Chief Diversity and Belonging Officer, and Anna Brown, Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs. Welcome to The Journal. Let's talk a little about Beyond the Dreams, how it came about, and then some of the background, and then we can talk about all of the things that have been going on in the past couple of months and will go on in the preceding months.
Yes, so Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., hopefully everyone knows him and is aware of the work and commitment that he had to social justice and just making our world a better place. And here at Bowling Green, we're striving to do many of the same things. So Beyond the Dream is a series of programs that were created to really showcase some of the various things that are happening from offices and departments across campus that are touching on various diversity, inclusion, social justice type topics, but also stringing together just the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and what he was all about. And so that's where Beyond the Dream comes from when we think about the I Have a Dream speech, just thinking about that continues to carry. It shouldn't just be this.
It's about the dream.
Exactly.
We've moved, how that evolves through the years. Now, there's a lot of events going, but talk about some of the background, because this isn't the first time we've done this.
No, not at all. And actually, what Jennifer was talking about really kind of speaks to why we started the Beyond the Dream series to begin with. Is we used to have a keynote speaker for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and that speaker would come in, and it was a one and done type thing. And we know that people learn better when events occur in a series or occur over a long period of time. And so if we really want people to take these ideas and these notions in and take them seriously and learn from them and grow from them, we've got to do more than just have a one day, one event type thing. So instead of having just the one day with the one speaker, we decided to work as a committee to bring the series along throughout the course of the semester. And the course of the semester turned into a little bit longer than the course of the semester. And so it's really grown from just, the idea of if we take this keynote speaker for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and then we put in Black Issues Conference and Latino AX Issues Conference, and we put in the ordinary people, extraordinary stories, then, that kind of tie it all together in one type of theme. And so that's where it really came from.
Yeah, and some of the events that we talked about, this began back in November, but events run into May and include graduation ceremonies, but along the way, all of these other events. And I know that before we started doing the program, you were talking about something that caught my eye, this was called the tunnel of oppression. So can we talk about that for just a little bit, and then we can talk about some of the other things that will be happening, but talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah, so the tunnel of oppression is an activity that happens through the Office of Residence Life. It's an interactive experience where people go in, and depending upon what the topic is, it varies from year to year. And so people can learn from whatever the topic matter is. So in years past, there has been the glass ceiling and talking about the oppression of women. There's been the talk of women in politics. There's been a talk of Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter. I believe this year we're focusing on Black trans lives. And so it is a really great opportunity for individuals to go in at their own pace and kind of take in the displays and read through what's going on in the world, and also to have these hands-on experiences while they're doing that.
So describe some of, if someone was to walk into this year's tunnel of oppression, what would it be like for them? What would be some of the specific things that will happen as they do this?
Well, I can't speak to this year because I haven't been actively involved with it this year. But in years past, what has happened is you go in through the room, and there's usually an area of disclaimer and an area where you learn some vocabulary, learn what you're going to learn, so to speak. So kind of tell you what we're going to tell you, and then tell you what we told you as a learning experience. And so we have that moment where we have some terminology at the beginning, and then people walk through the tunnel and they go through the different displays depending upon what the topic area is. And then at the very end, they had what was called the light at the end of the tunnel. And so some opportunities for more growth and experiences outside of what you've just learned, some resources in case you need to debrief it a little bit more, some people you can talk to, some ways to continue your education beyond the tunnel.
So it would give someone a feel for what it's like to, whatever the particular focus the year happens to be, what it's like to be in that particular sort of situation, I guess would be the way to, is that kind of what it's like? Or to make sure that you understand
Understanding
the bigger picture
the bigger
of what
picture,
it's about. Okay.
the bigger picture. So in looking at we talked about in 2016 the ceiling shattered, and so talking about, has the glass ceiling really been shattered? And so it talked about women in politics, talked about the pink tax, talked about the different standards that are being held for women that are for men. In years past, we talked about what whiteness is and how whiteness has been constructed in United States history, because at one point in time, people who were Irish were not considered white. People who were Italian were not considered white. And so when did they become white and how did that happen? And so it was a really good educational experience for people who never really think about topics like that to kind of grow from them.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, because a lot of times when we look back, whether it's, prior to the year 2000, to a lot of people, that's history. They didn't live through it, so they weren't exposed to what it was like in the year 2000 or 1990, or you go back those years. As you just said, most people would never think, oh, well, Italians were always considered white. That's just a normal thing. How could it be any other way, really? But as you said, not necessarily the case. And that educating people or reminding them of where we've come from, how we've come, and where we are now is a really good point.
And how it impacts us today.
Sure. Right. So now, when you get together with these committees, and we've just got a moment here, how do you decide what to focus on each year? And I know it's an easy question, but the answer is a lot more complicated than that.
It is.
Simple question, difficult answer.
We start by really brainstorming who are some potential speakers who we could bring to campus first. And once we have identified some of the people who we would like to have speak, we start to try to thread together what do they have in common. That leads us to a theme. And once we have that theme, we for sure go and try to book people who can fit within that theme. And so it's a long process and a very thoughtful process as far as who we would like to have come, because raising awareness really is our goal, and making sure that we string together events that help people really have a great picture of each year's theme is something that we're striving for. So the committee each program works to contribute
This is
to.
all integrated and pulled together.
Correct.
So yeah. And we come back, I know that one of the themes this year is the power of the word. We can talk about that, as well as all the other things we haven't yet talked about with Beyond the Dream. Back in just a moment here on The Journal. Thank you for staying with us here on The Journal. Our guests are Jennifer McCary and Anna Brown, and we're talking about Beyond the Dream at BGSU. And one of the major themes is the power of the word. Words are pretty important these days, although it seems at times people throw them out without any thought and don't worry about the impact they might have. So talk about why that theme is what runs through a lot of this Beyond the Dream series.
One of the things that Anna and I do for a living is really constantly remind people about language. We talk about the fact that words do matter. We're dealing with people who have experienced microaggressions or bias incidents. And so as a committee, when we all started to think about how important the message from Beyond the Dream is, that's where power of the word started to come up. And Melissa Harris Perry, who's our upcoming MLK keynote speaker next week, she really is one person who's been quoted for saying, it actually does matter what you think about people and what people say about you, right? And so she talked about the fact that words matter and that there should be accountability for those words. And so that's where some of the theme is coming from. And then Bobby Seale is coming.
Sure.
Yeah, as part of Black Issues Conference, the keynote is Bobby Seale, who is one of the founders of the Black Panther Party. And so we wanted to, talk about not only just words, but putting words into action. And so talking about power and activism and how words play into that. And so we wanted to make sure that we allowed for expression. So there are going to be some creative acts that are part of the sessions that go on during Black Issues Conference. But there are also going to be, people talking about activism, people talking about words and how words matter.
Sure,
So.
sure. And one of the things, I mean, and especially, obviously Black Panthers, Bobby Seals, that's my era a little bit, so I'm aware of that. And yeah, I mean, words were important back in the 60s. They were important in the 70s. They've been important. And they do mean things. And I guess they still do, because people do react to them positively and negatively, depending. And but I think it's very important. And obviously, there's someone who was very out in front of things at that time, and was a dynamic speaker, a dynamic leader. When you look at some of the other events, and I know there's a long list of them. What are some of the other things? And of course, these events too, people can participate, they can attend. It's very easy to go to the website, bgsu.edu/beyondthedream.
Correct.
And you can find all of this information if you want to attend.
Yes.
There's information about that. So it isn't being done in isolation. It's open to the public. People can attend. We want to make sure people understand that. When we look at some of the other people that are going to be here, and I know that we talked a little bit about the extraordinary stories, ordinary people portion of that. That's another incredible story of someone with a lot of challenges who has this wonderful story to tell, and using, of course, using some wonderful words, I'm sure. So talk about some of the other things that are going to be going on too, beyond the keynote speakers that we've talked about a little bit.
Sure. It would be great. Taste of February. It's a program we're both committed to.
Right, absolutely. And Taste of February is another one of the Office of Residence Life offerings. So Tunnel of Oppression comes through them, but also Taste of February. And this is an event that is put on by the SMART program. SMART is a mentoring program for first-year residential students, geared largely towards students of color, but it is open to all students. And the students actually put on the program in honor of Black History Month. And so they pick a theme, and they pretty much come up with the direction that they want their vignettes to go. And the students plan, participate, and they run the whole shebang. And so it's really a great opportunity for us to see our students' abilities, for us to see their creative process, but also for them to be able to give a little bit of homage to Black History Month and the importance of Black History Month for the students that participate in the program.
And then March is Women's History Month, and so there's also a Women of Color Leadership Summit coming up in March to tie in everything that we're talking about with Beyond the Dream, but then also we recognize a number of different heritage months and months that are celebrating certain people and demographics of folks. And then Beth Macy is another keynote speaker who Education and Human Development is bringing in April, in addition to all of the graduation ceremonies and things that we'll do to honor our students.
Right. Now, and I noticed there are graduation ceremonies around the time, end of May, or beginning of May, beginning of May. Talk about how those kind of evolve, because those are designed for different groups on campus. Yeah.
We know that certain groups work together in the community. Celebration varies. So how we celebrate as part of the African American community may differ a little bit than how the Latinx community celebrates, and how the LGBTQ plus community. We want to make sure that we're giving all these groups an opportunity to celebrate within as well as part of the whole. Because a lot of our students who have those identities are overcoming really big barriers that some of our other students don't have to face. And so we want to make sure that we are giving them a chance to say, I did this, I made it. This is a really, really big deal for my family and for me, and to give them that space to have that. So we have lavender graduation for our LGBTQ plus community and allies. We have black graduation for the African American students, but also, again, their allies are welcome to participate. We have Latino-IX graduation, which honors our people who are participating from the Latino community and their allies as well.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, of course, not that the commencements aren't wonderful experience there, but those are large groups. You know, 800, 900, 1,000, sometimes more than that students. So it's an opportunity to, of course, have a somewhat smaller, more personal feel to it as well.
And it welcomes families in a different way than they might be able to participate.
Yeah. And as you said, different ways of celebrating, different ways of, and of course, because of the way, you know, first generation students coming to college, there are different ways of looking at how that impacts their family and themselves as well. So it's a good thing. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more. We've got a few more minutes to cover Beyond the Dream here at BGSU. We'll be back with our guests, Jennifer McCary and Anna Brown, in just a moment. Thanks for staying with us on The Journal. Our guests are Jennifer McCary and Anna Brown from BGSU. And we're talking about Beyond the Dream, a series of events that began in November and runs into May here at the university. And you can, of course, find out all the information you need about that by going to bgsu.edu/Beyond the Dream. There's a series of issues conferences involved here. So let's talk a little about what those are and the process and what's going to happen at those.
So this year is actually the 20th anniversary for the Black Issues Conference. Okay. And so we're having Bobby Seale, who is one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, as our keynote speaker. We tie into the power of the word overarching theme for Beyond the Dream by talking about putting words into action. And so our different panels and different sessions are centered around that theme. And we have everything from students talking about microaggressions to a presenter talking about urban farming, to talking about activism in sports. So there's a wide array of presenters that do the sessions in the afternoon in addition to the keynote. This year is also the 25th anniversary of the Latino AX Issues Conference. And this year we have Ruben Angel, who goes online by Queer Chicano Chisme. So again, chisme means gossip. So again, the power of the word and how that goes into play. And those two events, although the public is encouraged to attend, those are not free events for the public because there is a luncheon attached to it. So we have to cover the cost of the luncheons. But it's a great opportunity to find out topics that are happening within the communities and how they tie into the keynote themes overall.
Okay. And one of the, I guess one of the things too is the availability and the accessibility to people who aren't in those communities that can be aware then of what is going on with people, other people, you know, because we all have our own sort of view of the world. This gives them, expands their vision of what's going on in their community beyond what they do themselves. And I think that's really important. And
it's a great chance for those of us who are not part of the community to join in with the community and to get a good sense of, you know, what may be some of the issues that folks are facing, and how can we be a part of the solution with that. Yes, it's a great chance for those of us who are part of those communities to celebrate and to explore, but it's also really a good way for folks who are outside the community to be part of.
And one of the things I noticed too is most of these events are on the BGSU campus, but there are several that aren't, and one of them, of course, are one of the community groups that's involved. There's a piece on Not in Our Town, which is a City of Bowling Green State University sort of collaboration to bring those communities together and as you just said, make people aware of what's going on in communities other than the ones they're in. Talk a little about their participation, because they've been at work now for a number of years dealing with a lot of the issues that, that will be talked about here probably as well in some of these.
And Anna and I are both members of Not in Our Town. They're doing some great work and it's a great collaboration. The Interfaith Breakfast is coming up April 21st. And so the Interfaith Breakfast is just another great opportunity for people to come together to share in an understanding of people who may share similar communities to them, but may share very different communities than they do. And this one is specifically focusing on faith, but over a meal, and a great opportunity to just think about some of the different things that are happening in the community and how we can continue to help spread a partnership and an understanding for one another, and really make sure that we're being better neighbors to one another. And so Not in Our Town does a great job of pulling everyone together for that reminder.
And because obviously the more we know about each other, the better off we are. I mean, I know that sometimes people don't think that's the case, but the reality is that's what, the better I know you, the better you know me, the better things are going to work for everybody. Now, there are also some other heritage months coming up with this. We've talked about Black History Month, but I believe there's Asian Heritage Month or Asian...
Well, Asian American, or we're also moving
Okay.
towards saying APITA, which is Asian American Pacific Islander or
okay.
Desi American Heritage Month. So it's
Okay.
covering a lot of those Asian ethnic identity groups. The month actually takes place in May, but because we're not here,
Right.
we
Right.
celebrate it in April. And we have Michelle Zahner, who is part of a group called Japanese Breakfast, a music group. She's actually coming in to be the keynote for that. And so we're really excited about the planning that's going on with that as well.
Okay. And you know, you mentioned too, we have keynote speakers, we've got presentations. A number of these events have musical and theatrical messages or ways of delivering the message. It isn't just people
Right.
talking all the time. There are other ways to, of course, inform and, of course, be exposed to the cultures of the different communities as well.
Yeah, the Cherry Blossom Festival that we have on campus annually as part of our sister campuses that has been put on. Dr. Akiko Jones has been doing the work for a number of years and raising awareness about Japanese identity. And the Cherry Blossom Festival is one of the great events that we do in the springtime for that.
Now, when you look at the vast range of events, do you always feel that you've been able to cover everything you wanted to? Or are there always, at the end of the year, you sit down and debrief and go, you know, next year or the year after, these are some
Right.
things we need to do?
Right. We've already planned 2021.
Oh, wow.
And started
Okay.
to identify the theme. And so, yeah, we look each year. One thing that we talked about last year is we really wanted to pull in more around ability and disability. And so I
okay.
think that Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories did that quite well with the Paralympic athlete, Blake Leeper, coming to speak. And so we just try to continue to identify what are some of the topics that we need to talk about. But we also want to remain current with what's happening in the nation. And so we also try to hit on speakers who are going to be able to do that while staying true to the message that BGSU is trying to convey, which is our commitment to diversity and belonging. And so we try to continue to improve year after year.
Yeah. And that's got to be a bit of a challenge because you're trying to, a little ways, to predict the future.
Right.
Next year's scheduled.
Right.
Nothing's going to change between now and then, by the way. Just to let you know that. So everything you have in place is
Yeah.
right on time. No, but that has to be a challenge because things are so dynamic now, and I've always have been, I guess. So that is a challenge to be able to find things that are going to focus on staying within the theme and yet at the same time addressing things that are extremely current and topical.
Right.
And that has to be a huge challenge for everybody.
Yeah, and not to mention, you know, everybody keeps saying, well, how are you going to outdo what you did
Right.
last year?
And you will.
And
Yeah.
we continue to
might.
manage, I think, to at least be on par with what we
Yes.
did last year if
Sure.
we're not able to outdo it. And I think that we're going to have the same thing that happening next year where people are going to look back at our slate and say, wow, you had a really incredible slate last year. How are you going to top that? We're going to try.
Yeah. Well, and the other part of this is too that every year there are another several thousand new faces on the campus.
Yes.
So in a lot of ways there is some. You have to sort of roll forward at the same time, kind of let them know the evolution of this
Right.
too, because you're dealing with a new group of students every year,
single year.
and new faculty
And new
members and new
faculty and
community
staff.
members. So that's part of kind of keeping it moving forward at the same time, reminding people about what's happened in the past.
Yeah, and one of the great things that we have going for us is we do have student participation in not only on the committee, but also in terms of planning Black Issues Conference, Latino AX Issues Conference. So the new students come in with fresh ideas. The students who have been here for a while said, you know, we did this, but we really want to build upon what we've done in the past. And so we get a great sense from our students about, you know, kind of guiding us in the directions that we need to go as well.
Yeah. And that's an important part because I think students bring new ideas, different viewpoints, fresh approaches to things that we're familiar with, but they also bring things that we're not familiar with,
Right.
things that are new challenges for them. So that's part of the enjoyment of having students around is they keep us on our toes and keep us moving forward
For
too.
sure.
And it's part of bringing everybody together, I think. Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want to? We've got just a moment or two here the end that we haven't covered?
We just want to remind people that registration for Melissa Harris Perry next week is free. And so people just need to visit that Beyond the Dream site, bgsu.edu/Beyond the Dream, and can register to attend. It's great. The way that we're able to keep bringing such dynamic speakers is to continue to have participation. So when we know that people have an interest in it, we keep doing it. And so hopefully people will attend.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed on the website is there's information there about accessibility. So if someone does need to look at that as part of their visit to the university, there's plenty of information there, access and ways to get information about how to get to various places on campus in the best way possible. So it covers a wide range of things. So Jennifer McCary, Anna Brown, thank you so much for coming in, and best wishes with Beyond the Dream. It goes on into May. And again, if you are interested in finding out everything about this, go to bgsu.edu/Beyond the Dream. You can see all the things that we've talked about here and all of the information about when these events are, times, dates, locations, all of that. So once again, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next year with next year's calendar, and you'll be working on the following year. Have that in place by then too. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. You can check us out at WBGU.org, and of course each week on WBGU PBS. We'll see you again next time on The Journal.